Okay, let's go ahead and examine some of the parts in this Omni kit compared to the Alpha kit. Firstly, let's take a look at the two barrels. This is the original Alpha barrel, and this is the Omni barrel. The Omni barrel having this red coating on it. What you'll notice, first of all, is that there is a drastic difference, wrong point of the camera. There's a drastic difference between the size of the inner diameter of both of these barrels. If you take a look here, this is a snug fit in the Alpha barrel, which creates good back pressure on the dart as it's being sent out through this barrel all the way out. So it's creating this back pressure and keeping that constant pressure with no release of air all the way until it exits the other side of the barrel. What you will notice with the Omni kit is that it just slides through. This is also true with a full-length dart. So it is a very loose fit. It's slightly looser than a 9/16. To give you a comparison, this is 17/32 brass. As you can see here, it's a twist fit for the foam. This is 17/32, and it is also a loose fit inside, which I will bring up that point a little bit later, as there's something that I would like to do with this just to kind of give it a test run as well in a future video. I brought out my calipers here so that we can kind of test to see the size difference. So let's go ahead and open this up and let's take a look at the Alpha kit first. Here we go. This is roughly around 12.3, 12.2, 12.3 millimeters, and then this one is, and that, by the way, converted to inches, about 0.48 inches. And let's go ahead and take a look at this in millimeters. The Omni, 13.8, 13.78, so 13.8, roughly 0.54 inches. Darts are obviously 0.50 or thereabouts, depending on the foam, but it is larger, so it does, as you can see here, have a lot of room around the dart. So it's as if you're shooting this through something a little bit larger than 19/32 brass. If you have thicker foam, this might work out nicer for you. But if you're using pretty standard sized foam, you're going to find that this is going to be a loose fit. In the testing, you'll see that this does lower the FPS in comparison to this. So that might be good for you if you're looking at a game type where you don't want to be shooting over 150 FPS. There's a way where you can keep your Alpha kit intact with a 10 kilogram spring and just replace the barrel, and you'll be able to achieve those FPS limits for your game type. So that might be a plus for you there. Just the inefficiencies of this are going to drop the FPS about, I'd say, 25 to 30 FPS on a 10 kilogram turf spring. Ideally here, when you have a barrel that's larger than your dart, however, the air that is around the dart in the barrel ideally helps with centering. Now you can do that usually in a very short portion, so this is a much longer, larger portion. So from just the experience that I have with using that at the tail end of a tighter 17/32 brass and then adding a 9/16 or 19/32 barrel extension, it does help align the dart and center the dart. But when it's something this long, this is what's causing the dart to slow down. As it's centering, yes, but the air is also escaping around it and in front of it. So you're losing some of the air pressure that pushes the dart all the way through. You might even be getting a little bit of slowdown because now the dart has to push through the pressure of air that's in front of it now, as well as the air pressure that's still behind it. But it does ideally help with centering. So the barrel lengths themselves are pretty much the same. The threads obviously are the same. So it's really just the inner diameter that's different. Let's take a look at the more significant differences here. And this is the pusher. So obviously the pusher for the Omni has to be shorter than the Alpha because we're looking at being able to take half-length darts only versus full-length or half-length darts. Now what you'll notice here is this has a O-ring seal and the head design is very different. If you take a look at here, the inner diameter, the inner diameter of these two is about the same, so I don't see any difference there. Threads obviously here being the same. I haven't fully tested that, but it looks to be about the same. But again, this has the O-ring seal and this does not, which is important when it comes to the dart gate. So in the start gate, as you can see here, we will be pushing this in here, and when it gets to about this point, it then pushes itself and creates a full and complete seal between the pusher and the barrel. With this is designed to be an interlocking seal, so it's not a perfect seal, and it was designed that way so that it would just be an interlocking seal. And again, I've spoken to people at Jet about this, so I can get a good understanding of some of the reasons why they chose what they chose to do for this kit, so that I can give you both my opinion and kind of a fair review of what the goal of this kit is. And I think the goal of this kit is very important. The goal of the Omni kit, yes, is to be able to shoot both half-length and full-length darts, but it was also a solution for lower FPS Nerf battles. This barrel is very tight. There's a specific spring load threshold you have to overcome in order to use this barrel. I'm thinking that's about an 8 kilogram spring load. Anything less than an 8 kilogram spring load, it's not going to fire very well out of here. You might be able to get away with a 7 kilogram combination spring load, but I wouldn't push it anything less than 8 kilograms reliably. So that becomes kind of an issue, because if you want to shoot lower FPS, you do have to overcome a threshold for the spring load in order to use the Alpha kit. This, not so much. So you should be able to use lower spring loads. The other thing is, because of the way this was designed not to have a complete breech, a lot of the air does escape between the gap between the pusher and the breech. That is an intentional design, so that, again, there's going to be less pressure to the dart as it's being shot out, producing a lower FPS result for the dart. This is all intentional. Their intended goal for the FPS of these full-length darts out of the Omni is between 100 and 110 FPS. I think it meets that for the most part. There are some inconsistencies because of the air that is released from here that cause it to be having really large variances in FPS, sometimes in the 70s, sometimes over 115, 120s. If they're shooting for that 100, 110 goal, yes, they do meet that with this kit. I just don't find it to be very consistent. In other testing, however, I was able to show that, using this, we are able to get more consistent results. Again, because this is a complete seal, there's no air leakage out of here. The air delivery is consistent every single time. The variances are going to be with the dart and the dart fit. Some foam is thicker than others, yada yada. But this keeps it very consistent as opposed to this. The back cap here is metal as opposed to the plastic that was in the original Alpha kit. And you can see here the concavity inside of the backside, or the inside of the cap here, gives it a very thin margin of plastic. I haven't had any issues with this. I've used 16 kilogram springs, no issues, though some others have reported that they've had this breaking on them. So this metal one is a good piece to be able to use as well. You can take a look here that the size is rather thick. So this is a really thick piece of metal here. So I don't see that breaking anytime soon. So that's kind of a nice feature. One thing to note in between the, wrong spring, in between these two spring loads is that this is the spring that was provided. Let's go ahead and get this one out. And this is the Turf Blaster Springs 10 kilogram spring. They are the same length, but the coils, as you can see here, are where the differences are. They're even the same diameter. It's just really the coils. Sorry, wrong side of the camera here. It's really the coils that are different. You can tell that these coils are much thicker than these coils here. The power difference is noticeable as well when you're flexing it. This is much easier, this is much harder. Now in the installation of this, I've come to learn that when you're installing, and I know I don't have a spring in here, but when you're installing this for the provided spring with the Omni, at least for myself, you do want to go all the way down until it locks into place. And then for me, it worked much better when I did a half turn out from lock. And that's to get it to catch consistently and still get a really good power output. Now with the stronger 10 kilogram spring, I had to make sure that it was, and I'm going to try to get this on camera here, right about there. So it's just barely peeking. I don't know if you could see that, but it's just barely peeking out from the plunger tube. That works really well for the 10 kilogram spring. Again, to get it to catch consistently. Having it all the way down will not let it catch consistently, but just a little bit out, just a little bit of that lip out does get it to catch consistently. It does still hold into place, and everything works just fine. This is omnidirectional, so you don't need to worry about which side goes where, which is really nice. I like things that are done that way. As far as the air delivery of the Omni, there is no issue here. I've already tested this for its air seal, and it's a perfect air seal here. I've tested it this way as well, putting this on, and there is a perfect air seal in this entire system right here. So the bolt itself is a perfect air seal. It really and obviously the barrel itself is a perfect air seal, but it is wider than the dart. It really does come into play only here. This is where all the air leaks, right here. And you can kind of definitely hear the air escaping. When I plug the end of the barrel, all the air just escapes out of here. It's not an immediate, well, it is an immediate release, but it's not a completely free release, so there is a little bit of resistance to the air coming out of here, but there's no seal which to speak of with this. That being said, I think that covers pretty much all of the parts of the Omni kit that were different to the Alpha kit. I've spoken with Jet about this product before even putting out this video, just because I wanted to give them a fair assessment before I put out this review, and I wanted to make sure I gave an honest and gracious review about this product. And here's what I think about it. If you're looking for a lower FPS system in your Alpha kit, yes, you can use this as an option, but I don't think I would recommend it if you want to run a long shot with lower FPS, around 100, 110 FPS, a long shot, or an Xeus 2 or whatever long shot shell is what I mean when I say a long shot. You can achieve that much better elsewhere. One, if you're a modder like I am, and if you have capabilities and access to brass, go ahead and create a brass breech long shot. If you need help on how to do that, check out the info card here or in the description below. I have a build guide that I know I need to finish, but it has enough in there to show you how to do a sleeper breech brass barreled long shot. The rest of that video will be coming soon, guys. I know many of you are asking, but just wanted to make sure that you knew that that was an option. This has too many inefficiencies for me. So you can use a brass breech. You can either commission somebody like myself or somebody local to you to do it, who has access to the brass and material and equipment if you don't. But I think that will do you much better. If, again, your goal is just to get 100 FPS, and that's all you really want out of your long shot, go with another kit, perhaps an Orange Modworks Stage 1 kit. You don't necessarily need to have a Stage 2. I have an Orange Modworks Stage 1, and I'm getting pretty consistent results with that. Now, obviously, that one won't allow you to shoot half-length darts, unlike the Omni kit will. So if half-length darts are important to you, you will have to take that into consideration, that the kits like the Orange Modworks Stage 1 won't really work well with half-length darts. But if you're looking for full-length darts that are shooting 100 around 100, maybe just less than 130 FPS, that's probably the better, cheaper way to go. The reasoning behind that is not just because this is cheaper, or that would be a cheaper option than this, because in this case, you don't just buy the Omni kit in order to do that, you also have to buy the Alpha kit. All of that combined is more expensive than just a Stage 1 Orange Modworks kit, and also significantly more expensive than just cutting out your own brass and putting it together. Unless you don't have the equipment, in which case the equipment will cost you more. But, and this is what I told Jet, when Hasbro or any other dart company wants to produce a product that is lower power, what they do is they build an efficient system, or as close to an efficient system. And I'm not talking about the smart ARs here. I'm just talking about breech systems or just front-loading systems. When they want to create a system that's lower FPS, they build it the way it's supposed to be done first, and then they add the inefficiencies after. Things like air holes, for example, or shorter effective barrel lengths, so that it's really only the last ½ inch of barrel that creates the seal. The rest of it just is faux barrel or just for show. Those things are what they use to create a blaster, and of course a lower gauge spring, but those things are what they use to create lower performing blasters, and lower performing blasters are important in specific game types that you want to play. However, what Jet has created here is a lower performing system, but not one that we can fix. With air holes, and I'm not saying this is an inefficiency, this is actually a benefit, but with air holes, you can just plug up the air hole. If the barrel is looser, you can just rebarrel it. Things are not that difficult to be able to make them perform better in those systems. I can't do anything with this. This is just an inefficient system. This pusher right here is just inefficient. There's no seal, and there's no easy way to make a seal with this. And that's a big problem for me. Okay? There's no easy way to make a seal for this as it is. So if I were to take this system, and let's say I wanted to still use full-length darts, but I wanted to have increased power, the only option that I have is to increase my spring load. However, increasing my spring load, again, causes the other side of the issue, which is that the plunger head itself, and I don't have this padded for a specific reason, and that's because I'm still in the testing phase. I don't want to add anything to this system that doesn't exist. There's no tape, there's nothing. It just is what it is because I'm testing it out of the box. The only thing I've added is grease. But you would need to pad your plunger head if you're going higher spring loads than what is provided for you. Because at these higher spring loads, this air efficiency is going to cause that piston to move significantly faster than it normally would in a closed system. That dart will be providing resistance to that piston so that it cushions the blow as it slams into the front of the plunger tube. But without that, that piston is traveling much faster, so it's doing more damage to it. And if it's a higher spring load, I think this is your limit right here, this 10 kg spring. If it's a higher spring load than this, a combination, or like let's say the 16 kilogram turf spring, I wouldn't recommend it at all. Definitely not without padding, and even with padding on a 16 kg, I still wouldn't recommend it, because you're now still creating that is a very strong spring. You're creating a very fast piston that's traveling through this plunger tube, and it's creating no seal here to slow it down significantly enough. So it is slamming into that. It's slamming into your internals. It's dry firing it. So I feel like with this inefficiency right here, it is going to hit a limit. And that's, again, a problem for me. I'm a modder first. Most people, I guess, are hobby players, and they have different goals in mind. My goal is specifically performance. I like to modify things, and I just feel like this is not something that I can modify. So especially if you're a modder, you want to have the capabilities of better performing things. this isn't the way to go. I do show you, however, that there are a couple of benefits to having parts of this kit if you do choose to order it, or if you've already ordered it and you're watching this review going, well, I don't know if that's something I really like now. But hold on a minute, because while this is terrible, there is use for this. In the testing, the kit itself installed as an alpha kit using half-length darts, obviously, with this barrel instead of this barrel, yields a lower FPS result, roughly 25 to 30 FPS lower, just from changing out the barrels. So you can go to a game and just pick your barrel and be able to run a more or less effective barrel to whatever FPS limits are to that game. The second one, and again from this barrel, is this. This is 17/32 brass. One of the issues with this barrel is that it's a specific length as of right now. Jet hasn't released any kind of other lengths to this. We don't really have any other sources for different barrel materials that are already threaded to the same specifications as this to be able to change out the barrel lengths. And barrel length is going to be important in the power source that you have in your piston. However, with a little bit of tape, this will seat in right here, and we'll be able to use this barrel to create as long of a barrel as we need to with 19/32 brass. Now there's going to be a limit, obviously, because this is only about this much effective, maybe about this much effective plunger volume. So yes, you're going to be able to use longer barrels, or maybe just even a brass barrel, which is tighter than this, and get more power out of it. But there's just going to be a limit with how much of a barrel length you can have, because there is a limit to how much air is being pushed out of this piston here. So just keep that in mind. I don't have any testing data for that whatsoever, as I am just toying around with that idea. This end cap is also very useful because, again, this is the plastic version. I haven't had any issues with it. I think this is a solid part myself. But if you did have any issues with it, you can definitely use this as a replacement. I think that's a solid replacement. This spring you can use to double up other springs. It says it's a 12 kg on the box. In case you're thinking I'm crazy about that, it says here the Omni kit includes a specially tuned 12 kg spring. So I'm not just blowing smoke telling you that this is a 12 kg spring and saying it's a weak spring. That's what it says on the box, but this feels like an 8 kilogram spring to me, not a 10 kilogram spring. Or not a 12 kilogram spring. This is a 10 kilogram spring from Turf, and it is significantly tighter. This is a stock Longshot spring. It feels like it's about 2.5, maybe 3 times more than a stock Longshot spring. So that's all I've got for you. So if you're looking for something that's lower FPS, I personally don't recommend it. If your goal is just to have a lower FPS, go get a different kit, or make something yourself. You don't really even need a kit to achieve 100 FPS out of a Longshot. It doesn't take much to get that. It's a really big plunger tube. Change your spring, knock out your AR. You're probably going to be pretty close to 100 FPS with full-length darts there. If you want to do, there's so many other options to doing that than this, because this requires you to buy the Alpha kit as well as the Omni kit in order to achieve that goal. So I don't want to reiterate myself, but it's just going to be inefficient if that's your only intended goal. And if your goal is to be able to fire full-length darts and have the option of going lower FPS or higher performance, this is 100% not going to be the kit for you. This is just something that's not easily overcome, and that's really the crux of this issue here. It's not the only issue, but for me it's the most important one, because I can't fix it easily. There's just no way to get a good seal out of this, and so most of your air is going to be escaping, and it's not conducive to higher performance. I've already said my piece about how all that stuff works. I don't think I need to go over it anymore. overall, I'm pretty satisfied with a lot of the products Jet has come out. This is the lowest on my list. I did pre-order it so I can give you guys as much information as possible as soon as possible. So if you did find this information beneficial to you, I hope you subscribe. If you haven't already, please like this video, share it, comment on it, ask me more questions. So that's it for now on the Jet Blaster Omni kit. There may be a few more things. Yeah, there will likely be a few more tests that I'm going to be doing with both the Alpha kit and the Omni kit in the future, so please keep a lookout for that. Thank you guys for watching. I know this video is running very, very, very long. It's going to take some time to edit it, but thank you for all of you who stuck all the way through this. I hope this information was helpful to you, and I will catch you in the next one. Nerf on, everybody.